Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My guest here today is Jack Phillips, who is the chairman and co founder of ROI Institute. Jack, I'm so happy to have you here today.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.
Well, tell everyone a little bit more about what ROI Institute is all about and what you guys do.
Yes, we basically help people see the value of what they do and show that value. We'll either do it for you or we'll teach you to do it or we'll do it together. But
Mm.
the key is have credible data showing the success of whatever you do, whether it's your work or your projects, uh, your interest in your career, whatever it is. We do that. And we work in 70 countries. Um, we document what we've done in lots of books, over 100 now, and we speak all over the world with our team. We have 100 consultants who
Hmm.
do just this. They live and breathe and sleep and eat ROI, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
ROI methodology is our trademark
Hmm.
system.
Yeah, I find that's oftentimes it's such a common thrown around term like ROI, and it's important to show that, and everybody kind of has a general understanding, a general grasp of it. But what are some of the most common challenges that companies face when they are trying to show the ROI and the value of what they do?
Yeah. Well, first, the number one barrier for someone showing the value of what they do, whether maybe it's a service they have or a product they're selling or the work that they do, the concern is, will it deliver value?
Hmm.
Is the ROI positive? So there's a concern that it may not be. Just think if I'm selling a program that I want someone to take, uh, will this program deliver my client a positive ROI? So
Hmm.
that's the biggest barrier. And so we have to overcome that because we remind them that if it's not delivering value, then if it really doesn't deliver value, uh, why are you selling something? Do you often say it drives a business? And some people say, well, we all say that.
Hmm.
Well, if it does, then you need to show that. Now, more than likely, if it doesn't deliver, it's not the product you have or the service you have. It's just it wasn't used properly. And
Hmm.
this is the kind of data you need to see that so you can correct it. And so you need to let your client have that. So we try to overcome that number one barrier. Second, they think it's too complicated. And so we try to make it simple by just having step by step process. And we try to keep the math simple.
Hmm.
Can you imagine? We can we can conduct an ROI study on a major system, for example, and show it to a CFO and get the buy-in for the results and never go beyond fourth grade math.
Hmm.
So that's good news for some because they think this must be a lot of statistics, a lot of finance and accounting. This
Hmm.
is not what I signed up for.
Hmm.
Uh, so no, we try to keep it simple. And then, so many people don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
They don't realize there's a method to do it, a system, a structure, a
Hmm.
process with standards, and we offer that.
I find it so interesting that there's so much confusion around something that for you, obviously, of course, because you've been doing it for many decades, it's so simple for myself as well. For some of the people that I work with, I see what they do, I see the value, and for me, it's easy to kind of put the dots together in the puzzle pieces. But what do you think doesn't allow a lot of companies and executives to just put the pieces together in their own minds to really allow them to make that proposition clear for the people that they talk to?
Yeah. See, that's a good point because if you don't show your client the value, they will substitute the value they think it delivers.
Hmm.
And and sometimes for technology and technical issues, uh, they can see that. But for a soft project, for example, some kind of soft skill or a soft issue that we're dealing with, it's difficult for them to see it. And if they can't see it, the assumption is maybe it doesn't deliver value. Um, and and so we don't want them to substitute a faulty process or a value for what we're doing. We want to take the mystery out of it and show them. And if it's not delivering, we can show them where it's breaking down. It's breaking down in your organization, and here's why, and here's how,
Hmm.
and here's how we can make it work. See, it's really in your best interest if you're pushing something, selling something, promoting something, is to show the people the value it delivers. Hey, we see a huge issue with AI just now. One of the
Mm,
books we've written is called The Value of Innovation, and we work in the AI space. And we keep asking our audiences in webinars, how many of you seen an actual ROI study on an AI service, subscription, platform,
mm,
tool, whatever? And they all almost like 99% no.
yeah, I
And
personally
we
have.
say, look, they're not going to show it for you. You're going to have to ask for it.
Mm,
And I wish it wasn't that way. See, we try to go to providers and say, don't wait for that request.
hmm
Be proactive and start showing it. Use it as a marketing tool.
hmm,
Forecast it up front. Don't run from it. Embrace it. Because ultimately that's the ultimate accountability. Am I getting more value out of this than it's costing me?
hmm
Hey, and that we do that in our own purchases. When Starbucks reported recently that the blonde vanilla latte is now negative ROI,
hmm,
that was a way of saying customers say it's not worth the price and they're walking away from it. That's all what ROI is about. Is it worth it?
hmm
Do I get enough value out of this to cover the costs that I have? So it's not an unfamiliar term, and and it's not a mean thing. So some people think it's mean for a CEO to ask
hmm
for this,
Yeah,
particularly for something like leadership training. Can't they take it on faith that we need new leaders? Yes, yes, yes.
yeah.
But they're paying something for it, so they need value. Show
hmm
them the value in terms that they appreciate and understand.
Yeah. It sounds to me like you have a very specific, and obviously there's no doubt that there's a structure and a system behind this entire thing, but it sounds to me like you have a very specific vision and a methodology that is oftentimes not the usual consensus for most people and most companies and how they view company building and how they view showing the value of what they do. Would you be able to pinpoint maybe a specific thing or it, and I'll give this comparison. It's kind of like everyone is on the same highway, but you're over on the fast lane or just like just moving along and
Yeah,
everybody's kind of just stuck
yeah,
there. That's kind of what it sounds like to me. So are you able to pinpoint maybe anything that any beliefs or any involvement that you have that you think differ from the norm and how that makes it so much easier to do what you do?
yeah. See, there's three things we got to have here.
Hmm.
One is our number one market or audience, I should say, that we've got to satisfy is it's the CEO, CFO, executives, funders, donors, sponsors. It's the people who are actually allocating the funds.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to have a process that's credible in their minds. So credibility, and that often translates then to a conservative approach. When we conduct ROI, we say it's at least this much, and it's going to be actually be more,
Mm.
but we can guarantee you this much. And so credibility for the audience. Second is it's got to be user friendly. If it's too complicated, it takes you too long, it's confusing, you won't use it. So
Mm.
it's got to be user friendly. And we work hard to make it user friendly. You can do this. I get a call if someone says, I'm struggling with parallel parking. Do you think I can do ROI? And we said, yeah, I mean, parallel parking is a lot harder than some of our ROI work.
Mm.
So, yes. And third, we got to make sure, in terms of research and evaluation, it's got to be credible. That is, it's got to be valid and reliable. So we work on all three audiences. We satisfy the CFO, the professors, and the participants, and
Mm-hmm.
the users, I should say. So that's what sets us apart because we've worked on this from the beginning. We've made it better. We've got good, clear standards that drive this. So we've got something that we are like a separate highway going a little faster because we can get there.
Mm.
We are we are satisfying the needs of those who need to know.
Hmm. And what's the most challenging part of the process for you guys when you are trying to have these conversations with the CFOs, the CEOs? What's the part that I wouldn't say is the most difficult one, but one that maybe has a little bit more resistance, more friction on their side that you guys always have to work a little bit harder on to get over?
That's an easy one because we face it all the time. Hey, this takes a little longer than I thought it did, or
Mm,
too much time. And we say, well, it does take some effort, but you got to show the value. we can't just push a couple of buttons here and bingo, it comes out. You got to
Hmm.
think through it. You got to you got to talk to your client. You got to get some information here. So this is why we say use this on a project that you need to. If you
Hmm.
if if let's think about learning and development space for a minute. If you've got 100 programs, we'd say probably you do this ROI for only about 5 to 10% of them.
Mm.
It's not worthy of doing it uh, any more than that, more than
Mm.
likely. You've got a lot of short programs, inexpensive, not that important. You got to do them, maybe compliance, do them.
Mm.
But if you got a big program, very expensive, it attracts a lot of attention, and the
Mm.
executives want to see the value because it's not clear to them, that's a candidate for that. So you want to pick your
Mm.
battles here to go all the way to ROI.
Mm. And do you
So
show that when you're having the conversations with possible customers for you guys? Is that the differentiator, just making sure that they focus and they prioritize what's actually important for them in the moment? And then as soon
yeah,
as they see that, they're like, okay, it makes sense for us to now invest in you guys. Is that kind of how that conversation goes down?
yeah, it is. That's right.
Mm.
So yeah, we that's usually relief when they say, "So we're not doing this for every program." Then no, no,
Uh,
no, no. I mean, we'd call that paralysis by analysis. If you
yeah.
did, it wouldn't
Hmm.
make sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you think there's anything? Actually, not. Do you think? Obviously, you've had some decades of experience in this space now. Is there anything that you wish you knew before you started on this journey that would have made things a little bit easier for you where you are now?
That's a good question. Um, uh, I wish, well, I wish I could wave the magic wand and have people see things as we do. The importance of doing this.
Hmm.
Um, and so many people say, "Look, no one's asking for this. I'm not going down this path." And yet we get to see, unfortunately, what happens when they get the request after they've done something, and it's difficult.
Hmm.
And I have to say, if I go back in time, we wrote the first book on training evaluation. Period. It was 1983,
Hmm.
Handbook of Training, Evaluation, and Measurement Methods.
Hmm.
Um, Now, when we wrote that, it brought out the concept of ROI. I was invited to speak to a lot of groups, and one of those presentation was the what's called the Business Roundtable.
Sure.
That's a collection of companies that would come
Hmm.
together, and the functions in those companies would benchmark as groups. So I had all the training managers.
Hmm.
At that point they called them training directors, and a group of them hosted me to come and present this process. And their conclusion at the end is, "This is great. It's credible. It's probably helpful and it's needed, but um, we're not going to probably go down this path because
Hmm.
there's just not enough economic forces out there that's causing us to do this.
Okay.
So I don't think there's really going to be a need for this going forward."
Hmm.
Now you can imagine how that made me feel,
Hmm.
and I thought, is this impossible? And but we kept working with it, and we kept showing, and there's economic forces that come together. And right now, what's happening globally is a strong sense of accountability. You got to show the value of what you do, or you might not survive in an organization. So
Hmm.
I wish we didn't have that going on, but what that's doing is driving the interest in our process. We've got 3 calls this morning from military groups and it says, look, we got to get ROI because they're even looking at the Pentagon to cut budgets, and we got to show the value of what we're doing here.
Hmm.
And and your your name of your organization has been um, floated around the military community as this is where we can come to learn how to do this.
Hmm.
Now, so the economic forces come together. They've come together long before this current administration we have. But anytime you spend money, people want to know what's the value. And
Hmm.
that's the thing we have to remind people. So eventually, this has become the most used evaluation system in the world. But it took a while to get there. But
Hmm.
it's keeping using it, taking it to new groups, new places. We started in business, but Most of our work is in the public sector these days,
Mm.
and globally, we work in 70 countries, as I mentioned. Our books
Yeah.
are in 38 languages.
Hmm.
So it took a long time to get there. It's been a tough journey. It would have been easy to give up on this process, but we
Mm.
knew it worked. And
Yeah.
that's the key thing. When we do studies, we do lots of them. I just presented results on one this morning, which is an interesting one I won't go into, but if you want to
Sure.
see an example of a very soft one, I'll tell you about it. But the point is, it works, and it works so well. And this motivates us because we need others to see this.
Mm.
So I wish I could wave that magic wand and got more acceptance earlier on. It would have made
Mm.
life a little easier for us.
That's it's so interesting you use the words magic wand because I've been asking a magic wand question to everybody that's coming on because I think it does allow everyone to kind of get rid of that the ceiling and the limitations. So your magic wand would be on the uncontrollable side would be maybe having that adoption become a lot faster. What about on the controllable side? What's a magic wand that maybe you would wave?
Yeah,
Maybe for right now, maybe an obstacle right now that's happening,
yeah.
a challenge right now that you just wave in and boom. If this was fixed, I'd love it.
We yeah we've taken the usually the approach that let's use the technology tools you have now, and this fits in any kind of process.
Hmm.
In other words, you can use Qualtrics and Excel spreadsheets and do an ROI study.
Hmm.
We need a little more automation. We tackle it in some different ways, and we've had some difficulties in making it work just right. And we're now using some AI tools, and we bringing in a digital coach that's going to help people do this
Mm.
on their own. So that's a magic one. I want the technology to support us in this process without confusing people.
Hmm.
But also, um, I don't want to give them the false hope that they can put in a couple of data points and push a couple of buttons, and you got an ROI study,
Yeah.
38 pages coming out the other end. It's not going to work that way. It never will,
Hmm.
uh, at least not in my lifetime. So, uh, so yeah, we've got to get more AI and more technology involved in this.
Interesting. I would love to learn from you. What are some of the maybe best characteristics, 1 to 3 traits or things that your best customers, your best clients always make sure to deliver and it makes them the best clients to really show the value in what they do?
Yeah, it number one, it's a mindset. You see, if you, I'll take learning and development space for a minute
Sure.
again. Now, uh, we know the executives at an organization want this. There's no doubt because they spend money and they'd like to see data there back.
Hmm.
Uh, the resistance to doing this is their own team. Getting that team, the people who deliver the programs, get them together to get excited about this and want to do it. The leader of that group is the key. When the chief learning officer says, I'm tired of us not having data that connect to the business.
Mm.
Um, I'm tired of our executives not wondering the value that we deliver,
Mm.
questioning the value. And then when there's a little uncertainty in the economy, they start trimming our budget first. I'm tired of that. So it just takes some mindset change. I'm going to go down this path, and we as a team are going to make this work.
Mm.
And when they do, they shine, and they don't have problems getting budgets approved, or
Mm.
getting the support they need,
Yeah.
or getting the process improvement that's often
Hmm.
needed in some of the programs.
It's the awareness and the action behind it. So it's like, hey, here's what we have. Let's stop making sure that this isn't continuous issue. Act on
Yes.
it, and then obviously through the data, then they can show that, which is so interesting. Is there anything that has been catching your attention lately when it comes to maybe the AI part of things and how it affects what you guys are doing for the companies you help?
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to point out too, if I could,
Sure,
AI
of
is
course.
one of those. We're getting a lot of requests that says uh, from two parts. One is we're spending a lot of money on AI. How can you help us show the value, and we show them that we can help
Sure.
them see the value. And we always say, go to your vendor, push them to do it because
Mm,
they don't want to do this. And we're getting some providers come to us because they've been requested by their clients to say, I got to see the ROI.
hmm,
If you're going to have us using this service or subscription or platform or whatever you have, show us the ROI of that. So we're getting some of those people to show up for us. Um,
mhm,
and we wish we didn't have to do that. But I wish the providers would say, I'm building a great tool. And part of that is going to show you the value we delivered in terms that you can appreciate and understand. They
mhm,
live off the wow factor. If I can write a memo for you that you didn't have to write, you're going to be wowed. Yes.
mhm,
And they live off of that kind of, wow, this will do all of this, and we don't have to have
mhm,
new people anymore on this. And so, but you got to show that value. So that's one thing that we see
mhm,
occurring in the AI area. And second, we what's happened to DE&I to me is just unfortunate because uh, the DE&I programs can deliver and do deliver business value. We've got
mhm,
studies that show that. We've got a book about that. But so many of the people involved in this and running these programs don't want to go down that path. They all got funded so well after the George Floyd incident here in this country,
mhm,
and they had chief diversity officers, and they're putting all this money in D&I, and we'd say now's the time you really need to show the values when you don't have to. You can do that. That's making sure someone doesn't want to get rid of this program in the future. And
mhm,
they said, "No, hey, our funding is good. We got good support. This is good enough for us." And we'd say, well, we got some experience along these lines. At some point, someone may be asking a question.
mhm,
So now they're going away. But we see some are keeping it because they got good data. Give you an example. Costco, 2 weeks ago, they had a proposal from an activist investor to for the shareholders to vote to remove all of their DE&I programs. Now
mhm,
they've been doing that with other companies like John Deere and Tractor and Supply and any others. What they were saying is that for your investors and for your customers, you need to cut this out, quit doing it. They don't want it. So a lot of CEOs run from that and they pull the plug on them
mhm,
because they don't see the value. Costco says, look, we've got data that shows the business value of DE&I. Oh, it's helping our business with innovation. It's helping us with sales growth. It's helping us with the retention. We got a business reason to keep it. We suggest to all the shareholders here, vote no on this proposal. And they voted it down.
mhm,
And it's because they had business value. And so we just popped out an article for one of the publications from the SHRM, that's the Society of Human Resource Management.
mhm,
And the title of the article is How to Save DEI. And you just got to show the value of it. Uh, and it's just a wide trend out there everywhere to get rid of these things, and they shouldn't be there. I mean, they shouldn't have that mandate to kill all of them. You
mhm,
should show the value. If it works for you and adds value, we should keep it.
mhm.
So that's what we see going on. This just doesn't set right.
That's interesting. And at the end of the day, it all comes back to the data. Just making
Yeah,
sure that everything is clear cut. Hey, here's what's actually happening. Make your decision based on that. That's so interesting. Jack, I
yeah,
have one final question for you here. And it's actually not a question from me, it's a question from the past guest. And they had no idea who you were. So, are you ready for that question?
yes.
What has been your biggest failure that turned into your greatest success?
Hmm. Biggest failure that turned into my best success. Um, um, I'd say when the the UN system adopted this a method as their or this evaluation system as a method of preferred method of evaluation. They did that in 2008. Now, what they did that with the UN General Assembly resolution and a press release, and they responded by offering our 1 week workshop for certification to the UN agencies, and they wanted to train 1,400 evaluators, 2,400 program managers, 2,700 project managers. It's a
Mm,
lot of work there. The first sessions we had with them were the most senior people who had been evaluating programs for a long time, doing something different than what we do. They didn't want to change. And they came to those sessions with a mission to kill whatever this is because they want to stay with what they got.
mm,
And so that was a group of vote no people, if you can imagine.
mm.
Um, so my wife and I had some of these people, and I remember her saying, "Why don't we just give up this and open a wine shop and not worry about ROI?" I
Sure.
mean, because they'd say, "We don't want this. We don't need this," and so we finally had to have someone from UN Public Relations saying, "It's not that we are asking for this, but our donors are asking for this. We don't do a good job of showing the value of what we do and sorting out the effects of our project from someone else's.
Hmm.
And so we got to do this for donors. It's them asking for it, not something that we just want to push down your throat here." So that I would consider our first few sessions with them a failure because they didn't want to be there and they
Mm,
made it miserable. But we kept on. We said, "Look, we know this works. We keep working with you." And then the UN turned into being one of our best clients. Lots of good, great case studies. It made a big difference in several UN agencies. 17 of the UN agencies implemented this. So it would have been easy to give up and just say, "We're not going to work with NGOs. We're not going to work with the UN. We're not going to work with anybody."
mm.
So, but it was this, we knew it worked. And it's just a determination to say, "We'll get beyond this
Hmm.
and we'll get there," because the people who are coming are not the typical ones. And then we saw groups later on very receptive, and then we automated that program uh, to make it on demand, and people are going to that even today still. So it it's a good question to ask. I hadn't thought about that, but that I'd say that would be my failure, short term,
Sorry.
but turned into be probably our biggest thing because we took that good success with UN. At one time on the UN System Staff College
Hmm.
website, they had 45 of our case studies there,
Wow.
for people to go in and look at that
Mm,
they have accomplished. And when you get that, people say, "Hey, this is possible. You can do this at
hmm.
the ROI level in
Hmm.
the NGO like the UN." It's a long answer to your short question. I'm sorry.
No, I like that. Thank you. Thank you. That's really awesome. It just shows, I think it shows how much perseverance and conviction make a difference. They make a difference because if you have that conviction and you persevere through all the failures, all the downsides, all the naysayers, all the bad things that can happen, at the end of the tunnel, there's always that light. Because if you believe in what you do and you actually think you're doing good,
Yeah.
then you'll shine. And I think you just shared that with that story, Jack. Thank you so much
Yes.
for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. I really appreciate you. Where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about ROI Institute and what you guys
We
are all about?
You can go to our website. That's roiinstitute.net, not .com, but .net. And my email address, you can reach out to me if you like. That's jack@roiinstitute.net. We'd be happy to talk about these issues, provide you some materials. Uh, hey, we got lots of books. We probably got about 100 books on Amazon, 75 at least. But hey, if your budget doesn't allow books, let us know. We can probably just get one to you. So let us know what you can see our publication side of the website there and see what we have that might strike your interest.
Awesome, Jack. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you.
Our pleasure. Thank you.